All right, hey everybody, it's Noah. It's with the Zone Podcast again. I'm here with Andrew. He was Silversmith Solutions. Andrew, tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Of course. How are you, Noah? Thanks for having me on.
Mhm.
My name is Andrew Smith. I am an energy professional. I've been in the energy industry my entire professional career. I grew up in a suburb outside of Chicago, went to DePaul University in the city of Chicago, and was in Chicago up until a recent move to Florida. I shouldn't say my entire professional career. My first job in high school was vending at a minor league baseball stadium. I was selling cotton candy and lemonade up and down the stands, 15, 16 years old. It's where I think a lot of the humility kind of came into play, shouting at people, try to hustle some lemonade, stuff like that. Really set a framework for direct sales for me.
Mhm.
Um, and believe it or not, in college, I got into the music scene a little bit, started to mess around with DJing, started to take off a little bit for the local Chicago music scene, I like to think. And then started throwing some parties, different events, going to college campuses, paid me to bring the booze and the sound system and the lights. It was a really fun run for a number of years. And believe it or not, I'm not sure if you remember those LED foam glow sticks. I remember in 2009, I first saw those at an event. I thought they were the coolest thing ever. And so I started looking online for those. Believe it or not, I couldn't find them for under like $3. So when I discovered what Alibaba was, so I decided to put basically my savings into a shipment. It took about 2.5 months to come, and I thought for sure a month in that I got robbed and that I'd never get my money back and the product would never come, but they did end up coming. I ordered 20,000 of them, and I got them for about 22 cents, 20 cents a piece. And I went to every single uh, summer music festival, you could probably think of, from Electric Forest and Bonnaroo, and the list goes on. I think in about 4 years, I went to something like 82 or 83 of them.
Mhm.
And I would either sneak these boxes of glow sticks in, I'd stuff the truck, and I would walk around with a big strap on my back. It looked like a light up Santa Claus with a whole freaking bundle of these glow sticks. I, believe it or not, dug one up, found it. If you don't know what I'm referring to,
Oh
pulled a
shoot!
little tab, and they look all trippy when you're like walking around. So in my first summer, after spending about $9,500 on a shipment, I turned that into about 140 grand. At 19 years old, which was really a game changer, and it kind of went back to the lemonade and cotton candy uh, era, because I saw these guys that were, and I mean, these were like carnies at the minor league stadium. They would take a single bag of sugar and they would turn that into hundreds and hundreds of bags of cotton candy, right? And they would charge $9, $10 for this cotton candy. I'm like, these guys are clearing up with a $9, $10 bag of sugar, And I was like, that's that whole buy low, sell high mentality, And it's kind of that entrepreneurial spirit, which is just find something that's cool that you can get a bunch of and go slide. So I did that for about 4 years throughout college, and I decided that I had to stop that because it was probably going to kill me if I kept going to these electronic music festivals and traveling the country doing that. These things were like festival currency, trading for all kinds of things and beer and T-shirts and you know, and that was a very fun era of my life. After college, I started working for my family's energy firm. I got a background. My parents, they're engineers. They uh, develop waste to energy power plants. So I worked for them for about 8 years. I was very fortunate. I got to learn a whole heck of a lot about the energy industry on the project development side of things. I got to go to every continent other than Antarctica in the 8 years I was working for them. Basically, what they were doing was working with municipalities, governments, colleges, you name it, private companies, that were in very remote places of the world where they might not have had the energy infrastructure to be able to add the power or combined heat and power, the energy they need to operate their facilities or to power their processes, whatever the case may be. You think of an example like in Saskatchewan, Canada, right, where it's miles from anywhere that's just about in civilization. They say, listen, we don't have energy infrastructure, we don't have power lines or gas lines. There's nothing around, but we got a heck of a lot of wood, And so we would take that wood, put it through a processing plant, wood chippers, take that and put that into a steam boiler. And what that would do is turn that into steam and essentially into electricity through a turbine. And it was very, very complex. I did my absolute best to learn as much as I could. And, by that 8th year, I had decided to make that choice to kind of pursue my own avenue in the energy industry and vertical in one way or another, primarily because, I'm not that engineer. My dad went to Georgia Tech. He double majored at Northwestern and is a kind of a genius when it comes to numbers. And there's very few people in the world that kind of do what he does. He was going to be considered for John Kerry's energy advisor on their team when he was running for his presidency. Obviously, he did not win. But it was a tough pill to swallow to say, when it gets to that legacy point, I didn't think that I would do justice by being able to take over, because it was just math and science that was just too far above my head in terms of conceptualizing and developing large utility scale power plants. So they actually moved down here to Florida, and I stayed back in the city of Chicago. And I actually linked up with a friend of mine. I was looking for a new avenue in career, if you will. And I had a friend of mine, shout out to Tim. He was out with me one night and he was showing me a pay report. He's like, hey, you got to come do what I'm doing. It's the easiest thing in the world. We're making a ton of money. And it turned out to be in the energy deregulation space. So to kind of put some framework to our conversation as regards to energy and solar, you kind of have to start in the basics. In 1999 is when 6 states became what is called deregulated. What that means is it gives businesses and residents a choice to decide where their energy has come from, electricity and natural gas, and it kind of breaks up the monopoly of the utility. And that was in 6 states. And then today, I believe there are 29 states that are quote unquote deregulated, either on the electric side or on the natural gas side, or a combination with both of them. You're going to see a lot of it in the blue states. Here in Florida, for example, it's not a deregulated state. And so what that means is when that, if we turn the clocks back to like the year 2000 and after, it was a new industry and a new ability to be able to go market to homeowners and to businesses and say, hey, we want to get you on a third-party energy supply program. What that will do is lock in and protect your rate against rising utility rates. On a national average, year over year, you're seeing anywhere from a 4 to 5% rate escalation for like the last 60 years. And when you have, for example, maybe a very large business with a lot of locations, like we call it restaurants or manufacturing facilities, something like that, if they're spending maybe $300,000 on electricity to the utility every year, and another $400,000 on natural gas, it can be a really big problem if those rates go up. So business owners, residents, what they could do is lock in that rate for an extended period of time, sometimes a year, 2 years, 5 years. And it would have that security that your rate isn't going to change, right? As the market changes and as political issues take place, country goes to war, as we can see with what's been happening in the past few years. since COVID and everything that's happened, electric rates and natural gas rates especially have increased in many states, almost to the point of tripling, which is a problem. Our modern society really relies at the core of everything that there needs to be readily available and affordable energy. And unfortunately, that's just really not the case anymore. And you look at parts of the world in Western Europe, Eastern Europe. Even over this past winter, you had people dying in their homes in Germany and the UK because they had no power. And a lot of that was, Russia's pipeline, they turning it off, when the war started. And it's been a very, very challenging time. And a lot of people aren't really up to date or aren't really educated on how either their energy bill works, or, many people just say, okay, I need to call my utility, Duke Energy or ComEd. I call them, I just moved in somewhere, I turn it on, I get a bill. That's all I really know, right? But there's quite a bit more to it. And I think it's really important for people to kind of educate themselves how an energy bill works. Typically, it's built up into three parts: the supply portion, a delivery portion, and then the taxes. And when you have a electric bill, for example, with the energy utility, that is on a variable rate. So it goes up and down regardless of how much you use. If that rate changes, you're going to be paying more. So it really has a nice sense of security to be able to lock in that rate. With that being said, I worked with my friend, and we were essentially standing on street corners. We were doing door knocking to get homeowners on a electric supply and gas supply contract to lock in their rate.
So where's that from? Was that from your parents' family, place, or
no? That was completely different. That's a much lower level, real basic. It's almost like choosing between I don't know, Comcast or Spectrum or Frontier, if you're talking about like cable, right? Only even more of a step further, because if you move into an area, into a neighborhood, everybody has the same electric utility. Mm-hmm. But in some states, you can choose on that supply portion where it's coming from. So you can choose, for example, you can go with a supply company like a Vistra, or they might have a product that is 100% renewable. So it's really just credits, but they're saying that it comes from a renewable source. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but some people want to be green. And that's an easy way to do that and also lock in that rate. But keep in mind that there were a large number of companies that got into the space. What they would do is they would buy blocks of energy and then really just trade it. And the utilities would have to, in the deregulated states, allow an individual to choose a supplier if they wanted to. And many of these suppliers were really doing shady business. They would put people on a rate that would be really low for 3 months. And after 3 months, it would jack their rate up, sometimes double, triple, when I remember in 2019, it was, we were in Chicago. The average price for electricity was about 5.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And we'd see somebody that was like on an NRG. It's a big third-party energy supply company. The Houston Texans, they play in NRG Stadium, to put it in perspective. I'd see an old lady who had no idea, and she was not paying the 5.5 cents that was just standard with the utility. They had her up to 24 cents. That was like nuts. 5 times the price, and she didn't even know. And you get people knocking on your door or in a Walmart or outside in the sidewalk and say, hey, we're going to lower your electric bill. Here's a free gift or something. Here's some sort of incentive. Just sign right here and it's done. And it was really that easy. Like, we could have signed somebody up on a third-party supply program in 2 minutes, and it would change their supply. And so that really got us a bad rap in just the industry overall, because as times changed and new programs became available, the first second somebody hears the word energy and you're there either knocking on their door or approaching them in the street and they don't know you, they say, oh, I don't know, I've been through this. This is a scam, right?
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. And you get that in a lot of industries. There's good and bad doctors, there's good and bad lawyers, there's good and bad every industry and trade. But it really hindered a lot of the ethical individuals that were trying to help people make a choice to really protect them and their utilities and kind of how they lived in a sustainable way, which is unfortunate. So I was doing that on the DREG side, and in 2019 there was a program that became available. It was called Community Solar. So when people think solar, they're thinking solar panels on top of a roof. And so what really happened in a number of states, I think it was about like 7 or 8 states at the time, there were state-funded large-scale solar farms.
Okay.
That what it was is a state incentivized benefit program, because many of the states had energy goals that they wanted to hit. For example, Illinois wanted to be at, I believe it's 40% renewable by the year 2030. And so one of the ways that they were trying to tackle that and obtain their goal, which is, in my opinion, unlikely that they will reach that, was to build these large-scale solar farms to add to the renewable derived energy that's on the power grid. And it's really cool because a lot of renters, homeowners, businesses, a lot of people that can't actually go solar can virtually subscribe to these solar farms without purchasing anything. Doesn't cost them anything. There's no fees associated with it, and they get a credit on their electric or utility bill, usually anywhere from 10 to 20% range on their supply portion, so they can know that they are a green household. They're getting a discount regardless of the rate, and it paid pretty good money. You could sign up a household, you could get anywhere from $100 all the way to like $500, $600, $700 depending on the size of the house. So I mean, an individual like myself or anybody else that's in that field, you could sign somebody up to be in a program like that in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And if you put yourself in a right location, like, yeah, people are door knocking. That's usually the typical way to do it. A group of guys who I admire very much. One of the guys I worked with, his name is Mike. He's doing fantastic. He's got tons of teams all over the East Coast right now. What we would do is we would put ourselves into highly populated areas in the city of Chicago, for example. We go to the beach, we go to events, we go wherever there was a whole lot of people outside train stations. We would hand out these gifts and we would say, hey, we want to get you on this program. You're going to save money. It's completely free to cancel. We can do it under 3 minutes and we're going to give you this gift. And so they'd be like, okay, let's do it. An individual could do 25 of those in a day if they're in a good spot. And when you're multiplying that by $100, $200, $300, $400, $500, you're talking thousands of dollars a day. Then you get an individual who is successful, or at least at getting enrollments, very personable, a sales type of guy, someone with a door-to-door background, personable, who can have conversations all day long. They can not only make a lot of money, but they can build themselves a team, take a slight override on production of the people that are on your team, and you can really, in a very short amount of time, build quite the business out of it. I mean, I know guys that have a team of like 8 or 10 people, and they're making $10,000-$20,000 a week every single week. And that's money that is insane. For a lot of people. A lot of the millennials and the Gen Z X's, they kind of have it instilled in their brain that they need to go to college and get a 4-year degree and work super hard and get a 6-figure job. And that way you're considered, quote unquote, successful. Right. And I think a lot of people who
Everything just
are
comes
entrepreneurs. Say that again.
Everything just comes down to sales. I mean, it's just transfer of energy. You just got, that transfer of energy, and money's energy. So if you're able to transfer that over with somebody else, I mean, that's power right in and of itself. I mean, do you believe thoughts to reality equals power?
Yeah, and I think, as long as somebody can go out and grind and can take no all day long and, have a good attitude and not get discouraged, whether you're knocking doors or doing any kind of direct marketing like that, the sky's really the limit, especially if you find yourself working a good product or a good program that's beneficial to your customer, right? Because that's essentially what we're doing. We're trying to help people. We're trying to add value and bring a solution. So, I don't know, by the time I even discovered that community solar was a thing, I was like 29 years old. I wish to God I had been 20 years old and figured this out because my life would have been considerably different, because I think I was, 29 at the time. And I was, some months making $40,000, $50,000 a month. And that was doing something that people would almost feel bad for me when they would see me outside or on their door. Like, they think I'm doing some real low level work. And, that was fine by me. They could think whatever they want. I just was going to do anything possible to explain how special these programs are. They're brand new, and do everything I can to get them enrolled, and ultimately help them out. I think always the biggest challenge was people would be, oh no, I know what this energy thing is that you're talking about. My bill's going to get jacked up. F off, get out of here. And, dealt with a lot of that, but you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt and just kind of deal with it. And then I got into solar in and of itself, because I'm like, hey, this is transferable. I think that it really makes sense to add a solution, but every customer is different, has different needs. Some people want to save more. Some people's homes qualify for different potential solutions. So I got also simultaneously into rooftop solar, first on the residential side. And then, that just kind of snowballed into having a lot of conversations. And with the more and more conversations that you have, the more and more opportunity you're going to have. And when, one door opens, you kind of got to go through it and try to do everything you can to be successful and really grow. Then it led to commercial solar. Someone would say, hey, I got a 60,000 square foot office space. I want to put panels on. And then it was a trial and error of like, okay, let me go through my network, try to find a solar partner that could take on a project like that, is while I try to learn, right? And I mean, YouTube should be everybody's best friend. You can learn any and everything on YouTube, right? If there is a video that is not on YouTube, if someone tells you about something, I mean, you could look at how to change a printer's ink cartridge if it's an HP 3709. Like, there's going to be a video of telling you how to do that, right? So if there's something that someone tells you like exists, or cow tipping, for example, right? People are like, oh, I cow tipped when I was young. Like, old guys say that. You're not going to find a single video of people cow tipping on the internet like that. Like, it's just like not a real thing. I think it's kind of like an urban legend. So I'm sure there's probably going to be some people fact checking this and now YouTubing that and being like, oh, I found one. But I doubt it. I highly doubt it. So to kind of get back, say again.
Like, when you were saying you were knocking doors and everything, and even getting into the commercial space, like, what would you suggest to somebody else trying to get into the commercial solar side? Because I know a lot of people are wanting to break into that by door knocking. Like, they've been door knocking for the last 3 years and they want to get into like commercial.
Absolutely. And I think it all comes down to your pitch, right? And obviously learning always. I mean, there's so much YouTube content. There's tons of Facebook groups, Solar Pros, Solar Talk with Solar Pros is a really great one. And then, I don't know, I think I belong to like 10 different solar Facebook groups that are super helpful, especially when you're trying to do due diligence on companies to work with, and just advice in general, and get tips and tricks. And then, go to some conferences. There's so many. There's just endless knowledge to soak in. So, I mean, if somebody is really passionate and wants to kind of elevate their career, it's constant learning. It really is a grind. But to answer your question, what I would do is I would do everything I could and to do some due diligence to find a reputable company that can handle that. And it's really just putting one and two together. I mean, some of the most so I had a mentor in college that really taught me a lot, and he is a very successful guy. His name's James Case. He was on The Bachelorette. Looks like The Rock. Everybody loves him and wants to talk with him. He was my next door neighbor in a high rise in the South Loop of Chicago, and he's not the smartest guy in the world, but he's very good at networking, and he taught me, that a lot of business and how to be successful is putting the right people together, and making deals and being a part of those deals. So as far as the how to break into commercial solar, all it is finding a client or a customer that's potential or has a level of interest, and then bringing it to the table of an EPC contractor or solar installer, and then working with them, going to the office. You don't have to be a dedicated worker for that company. You can be an independent contractor, and that can just be another tool in your tool belt, right? And you can easily bring that to the table. You get your hands on electric bills. You go to the company. You say, "Hey, I want to know how to do this. Give me some information. If it's, I'm willing to come in and soak up as much knowledge as I can. Be in on those meetings, and it's really not that difficult to kind of pick up. It's really just getting an electric bill, seeing the rate class, seeing their annual usage, and then building out a system that would accommodate them. The financing is different. There is quite a bit to learn, but like I said, YouTube, you can learn just about all of it. And my main point of advice though is to make sure that you are confident in the organization, the installer, the EPC partner that you're going to be working with, because my guess is that if you talk to 9 out of 10 guys who might be, or girls might be in the solar industry, I bet you that 9 out of 10 of them have been burnt at one point. There's a lot of unethical, there's a lot of snakes in the industry who will, either not get your deal done, who will steal your deal, or will just simply not pay you and ghost you. And it's really, really unfortunate because it puts a bad name on the industry, but it is 100% a reality. And so you have to be very careful about who you do business with, because it really sucks when, you're even somebody in the residential solar space, right? If you're knocking and you're writing a deal, let's say, even if you're a veteran or if you're just getting started out, if you've been, grinding outside in the rain and the elements and the heat and the cold, and you just knock every single day, 6 days a week, 5, 6, 8 hours a day in the field, and let's say in a 30-day time period, you might get 4 or 5 deals, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you have to wait until those deals get through permitting, they get through funding from the financing company, and or get installed, and then wait weeks after that to get paid on, right? And if you are in a position to where you're like, hey, let me circle back, is that can take sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to get paid on a job. If you're out there working every single day, let's say you got a family to feed, or let's say even if it's just you can't work for 3, 4 months at a time and really be grinding and then have somebody screw you over and not pay you, right? Yeah. Because a lot of people aren't in that financial position to be able to afford to keep that lifestyle going and to keep up that job and then just not to get paid or to get screwed over. And I mean, it happens time and time and time again. And I bet you the vast majority of people in the solar space, it's happened to them at one point. And it's just an ugly side of the industry. And it's happened to me. I've had 3 different EPC contractors that didn't get my job installed or didn't pay me or ghosted me, or even, gave contracts to my workforce and enabled them to circumvent. which really sucks. And that's the marketing. That's the being that business owner, is that you can't control your people, right? Even if you sign stuff like non-competes, non-circumventions, stuff like that, that's 9 times out of 10 not going to hold up in the court. You don't want to have to go spend money on lawyers. It's just ugly, and you can't control people, right? You can't tell them, oh, you're married to me, you can't leave the organization. I think it's more of a scare tactic that companies do that. I just don't think that it's likely that you're going to go through the court system, because that takes months and months and months, and really come out on top. You're probably just going to spend more money than you're going to make, and you already are in the hole to begin with. So it's really unfortunate like that. But as far as people that want to get into that commercial space, teach yourself, join some resource groups, get as much information as you possibly can, and choose a partner that you feel confident that can get the job done. Because as a salesperson, our job is to have conversations with customers, provide them with a solution, get those contracts signed, and kind of hand it off to the powers that be, the engineers and the EPC contractors. And you got to have faith that they're going to do their part of the job, and get that installed and have a happy customer. And yeah, that's kind of that process, I think, to stick by.
Yeah, I mean, so when you going back to like the snakes in the industry, do you have any stories that really jump out to you with people that you've dealt with?
Yeah, man. You can't believe what anybody says. You'll come across, you're like, oh, I might have a job in a territory, or you get a call from somebody, oh, I heard you're doing solar. You might live in one state, they live in a state over. The company you're working with doesn't service that area. You're like, okay, I'm going to find somebody who does. Oh, yeah, I can sell your job for you. I can get it installed, no problem. Super simple. Sign a piece of paper. We'll get it done. I, did that. Sold a sizable job. It was 20 kW or 20 kilowatt system. It would have had a large commission to it. We're talking almost 20 grand. And, they ghosted me, and it was a company that was not in good standing. Your state, whatever state you live in, you can go on in the Business Registry website and see if they are in fact in good standing. That's part of that due diligence process that I highly encourage you to do. You got to make sure that that company is in fact reputable, is active, and ask around. And I think it's really beneficial to do that, so you don't put yourself in a position where hours of your time, money that you spent to get however you got that customer, and you don't just throw it away, because then it will come back on you. As that customer, if they're unhappy, they're mad at you, and it's just it's really ugly. And that's just one story, man. I had a team of guys that were working with me. Even last year, had just about 32 people that were doing the community solar at events. And I had a individual come in who I trusted, who was an EPC contractor I had been working with for 2 years, to come in and do a sales training on their process and kind of get them excited. And this was at a time where the community solar capacity in the state of Illinois ran out, because there's so many solar farms that are active. And once they get full, you kind of have to wait until the next round of farms come online before you can sell them on the community solar program. And it was just unfortunate timing, and that comes with that industry. There's a lot of changes as far as legislation goes, capacity and markets. You have to be able to adapt, and it's really a lot of it's about timing. But the individual who came in and did the sales training essentially slipped my guys a business card and said, hey, I'll give this deal to you. And they basically were like, hey, what do we need this guy for if we can just get a better deal and run it through him? And that really comes down to, if you're going to be a business owner and if you're going to have a team of people, not only do you have to treat them right and pay them right, but you really need to add value to where they feel comfortable and they really have a lot of faith and see a lot of value that you're bringing to them as far as resources. just about in any way to where they want to keep working with you. And so then that individual basically absorbed my workforce, signed a contract with me like, oh, hey, don't worry, we're going to give you a percentage of all the business that they write. They didn't. 5 months go by, and I'm like, I know they're writing deals. Where's my check? Oh, and I was writing deals for them. And, then it was that Chicago guy in me came out, and I wasn't happy with them. And I don't want to say that threats were made or anything, but had to pull out a couple scare tactics. And after about a week or two of negotiations, I got about $55,000 deposited in my bank account, and the checks are still coming in. So, it kind of worked out that way. But you got to wear your big boy pants in situations like that, or else people are just going to take advantage of you. And that's just the reality and the name of the game if you're in the game of sales. It's if you're a salesperson, it's on you to track your progress. It's on you to track your deal status. It's on you to track your commission, because I don't care what company it is, man, they can screw you without you even knowing. So you really got to be on top of your game. And that's kind of the worst of the experiences that I've had with I feel like getting screwed over. But there's tons of guys and girls that are in the solar industry. I think primarily because it's solar kind of sells itself. If you are able to provide a homeowner or a business with a solution that makes sense. Some states there's a lot more incentives than others. Illinois, for example, they've got SRECs, state renewable energy certificates, which usually pays for about 30% of that system cost upfront.
That's not a tax, right? That's not a tax. That's
again.
That's an upfront check.
That's an upfront check, which is huge. Only a handful of states have that, an SREC program. There is a federal ITC tax credit. It's 30%. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act last year, that raised it from 26% to 30%. So if a homeowner were to finance or buy a system, you get a 30% tax credit for 30% of however much that system costs. And believe it or not, there's a lot of shady salespeople. Maybe they just not be educated or don't completely understand how the tax system or how the tax credits work. But there's a lot of malicious salespeople that will tell the customer, hey, you're going to get 30% of the system back. It's going to be, a check from the government, and it's not a check from the government. It's just 30% less that you have to pay into your taxes. And then you're supposed to then apply that to your financing solar loan at a point to where in its reamortization schedule. And a lot of people don't understand that, and they'll tell a homeowner, hey, this is how much you're going to get, and you have to apply it. But there's a lot of customers who might be retired or on disability, or they might be teachers working a W-2 job, and they might make $40,000, $50,000 a year. Their tax bill or their return is nowhere near that, right? So when it comes time 18 months later in the course of their loan to reamortize, and they're expected to take that 30% of that system cost, apply it to their loan, only they don't have it. They might have only got, a couple $1,000s. And if their system was 80 grand and they're supposed to take 30% of that and reapply it to their loan, they don't have that money. And now their payments get jacked up, and it's a really shitty situation, to be honest. And we see a lot of that in this industry because there's a lot of lower level sales agents that are really just trying to hustle and get a sale at any means necessary. And, frankly, it's bullshit. And a lot of these salespeople in the solar industry, they might work with one particular solar company. They might only have one financing tool. Maybe they have two or three. Maybe they have a wide array of them. But I think a truly effective salesperson, it's their job to understand their client to understand their needs and their situation and to find a solution that's best fitting for them. When you have that person that isn't a really high earner, or their tax situation is different than somebody who might own a company and they're paying into taxes, well, maybe that finance solar system that you're putting on top of your roof, maybe that's not the best choice. Maybe what you should do is do a power purchase agreement or a solar lease with a company like financial product from Sonova or from a Sunrun, where you're not actually purchasing that system. You're not getting that ITC tax credit. The solar company is actually paying for that cost of installation. They're paying that for the actual panels and the inverter, and they're installing it, and then they're just giving you your electricity at a discounted rate. And that's awesome for people, and it's much better for them than taking out a loan. And you really don't know unless you're asking your customer the right questions, right?
And that we talked about before, like being like Sunrun and like how they're only pushing leases and figuring like how the industry's so divided. Like, because sometimes it's community solar that's better, sometimes it's freaking owned solar that's better, sometimes it's leased solar that's better.
Exactly.
And basically, like you need to have a full. So, what would you suggest to these people? Like, what do you suggest? Like, you tell them to leave Sunrun and become like independent and use like how do you suggest?
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. You're going to find guys and girls that have been working. They're like, oh, I've been working for Sunrun for 8 years. I really love my job. You can sell a loan through Sunrun. Sunrun, they do everything in their power to push a lease. They don't like selling loans. It might catch some heat from that, but I personally don't think that that's providing the customer with the best solution, right? I consider myself agnostic solar professional because you look at a police officer, you look at Batman, right? He's got his belt with all the different tools in it. To be successful, you should have as many tools as possible, right? If you talk with the customer, you say, okay, let's understand what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish. Are you strictly trying to save money? Are you trying to just be green and help out the planet? What are your goals? We're not accountants, we're not CPAs. It's not really our job to completely understand their tax situation. But if we can explain it in kind of layman's terms and what are the differences between a power purchase agreement or a lease and financing and how that looks as far as how that would affect their tax situation, and depending on their tax appetite, they will let kind of what is the best solution for them. And many people, they might have a household that has bad shade, or they have a old roof and they technically don't qualify. You'll find solar guys that don't care. They'll size their system incorrectly. They'll put a bunch of panels that aren't going to perform the way that they should. They'll get that contract signed, boom, get the and they're on to the next house. And I think that that's really what brings a lot of the bad press, a lot of the negative energy to our industry. And I think, but there are a whole lot of people that are doing the right things and that are wanting to, change that. I think, like I said before, as far as your tool belt, if you are in the energy space, if you are a solar salesperson, have agreements and have relationships with multiple different solar install companies and EPC contractors. Have different financing options. Have be able to sell a lease, be able to sell a PPA, be able to sell a loan, right? And then if that solar solution doesn't work for that customer, hey, we can still help you. We can throw you on a community solar farm or a community solar program. You'll be able to save money. You don't need to finance or take on a financial burden of a solar system if it's not what's right for you. And if they're even in an area where they don't even qualify for that for some reason, hey, what we can do is we can still put you on a third-party energy supply contract that's going to at least fix your rate, and you're going to have some sort of rate security. It's not going to make a huge difference, but at least when we look, for example, in these last 3 years, the electric rates in Illinois, for example, have tripled. Right, it went from just about 6 cents, and now you're looking in the ComEd territory. It's like 18 cents per kilowatt hour. If they had been on a third-party electric supply contract, they'd still be at that low rate. And it also getting into that is you can also be in the commercial third-party energy supply contract space. You can have a contract for that. You can deal with the business and say, hey, solar might not make sense for you, but what we can do is still get you on a fixed rate plan so you're not variable, and that could save them a whole hell of a lot of money. I have clients that are businesses that are huge, and it's very, very lucrative to do a third-party energy supply contract with the business, because you're getting paid every single year for the length of that contract. If you sign a 5-year contract with them, you're getting paid every single year. And if it's a big contract, that could be $40,000, $50,000 a year for 5 years. And then when it comes time to, get a new contract when theirs ends, hopefully if you're a good salesperson, you knew to send them that Christmas card, send them that birthday card, kind of make sure that they don't forget about you, and you kind of get ahead of it before theirs runs up. You reach out to them, you say, hey, just so you know, your contract's going to expire here in 2 months or next month, and I've got some options for you. I think it's important for us to get ahead of it so we can really mitigate your risk and get you on the best possible rate. And, a lot of it's timing. Right when the rates dramatically doubled in, 2021, I had a client that was spending about $800,000 on natural gas and about a little over $500,000 on electricity, and they had got their contract like 5 years ago. Now, I mean, they've been used to paying $500,000 for their electricity. Now it's going to cost them $1.4 million because the rates have changed so much. A lot of businesses didn't quite understand that, and to be honest with you, a lot of businesses went under because they couldn't afford that, especially right in the heart of COVID when everybody's businesses are, losing money from the lack of work and the world being shut down. When you add something like that on it, and an unforeseen huge adjustment in your monthly overhead or yearly overhead for your energy costs, it can make or break some organizations. And when you're thinking about it on the residential side, someone might have $120 bill, their rate doubled, man, now it's $240. When you look at a business that's spending $500,000 or $1 million on energy or electricity, you get that to double or triple, that could really be tragic for their business. And that's just kind of, unfortunately, the world that we're in right now, and the energy space, and it's really unfortunate. And an individual like myself, I try to have every possible solution to best serve my customer or my client. And I think that is overlooked a lot, primarily in the solar industry, in the solar market. Don't get me wrong. You've got guys and girls that are going door to door. They're knocking, they're killing it, and they might make themselves $300,000-$400,000 a year. Let's say that they're spending $10,000 a month on lead generation. Let's say that they're a pretty good closer. They're closing at 30% closing rate, and they're paying for their leads at their appointments. Well, I'm sure you can offset that acquisition cost. Maybe they don't qualify for solar. Maybe you can put them on a community solar plan, right? At least go, when you talk to that customer, whether you're doing it virtually or at the door, at least walk away with $300, $400, $500. It'll take care of that customer acquisition cost, and now that $10,000 a month you're spending for lead generation, now that's wiped out. I think that's something that a lot of solar professionals aren't taking advantage of. And, I didn't even get into the commercial community solar. And I think a lot of the guys that are doing commercial community solar are trying to make sure that nobody knows about it, right? Because it is very similar to putting a company on a energy supply contract. Let's say if they put on if they put their client business on a 5-year energy supply contract, you're getting paid over the course of 5 years.
Yeah.
With community solar, it's about the same amount of money, but that comes right away in the very beginning. You know, I've had clients that were large. I say again.
Is that because of like the state incentives that you're getting paid a lot of money at the beginning?
You know, I think it's because the state is in fact giving these project developers a whole lot of money because it's in their initiatives, and it's mandated to try to reach their renewable energy goals. And the way that they're doing that, some states are, I think it's New York, for example. And I don't want to quote because I can't think of it off the top of my head. I forget. I'm not in New York that often, but I think they want to be at 50% renewable in 2030. And I'm sure someone's going to fact check and say that guy's an idiot. He's wrong. Forgive me. But the way that they're trying to obtain those goals is by throwing money at project developers. They're like, we don't want to develop them. We don't want to deal with the subscription model or handle any of the operations. Here's a big pile of money. You build it, you manage it. We just need more renewable energy on the grid, right? And solar energy is the cheapest and most abundant source of electricity in the world, right? It costs the least amount of money to produce solar electricity than any other means of generating power. And it's readily available. We got the sun. We got to take advantage of it. So these community solar organizations, these project developers, they're getting a bag from the government to now create a whole bunch of power. When that power is super cheap, they can provide it to the customer, the end user, the business at a discounted rate, and they're still reaping, a lot of that benefit. They're still making money hand over fist. And the cool thing about community solar, it's a win-win scenario. It's a win-win situation. It's great for the economy. It creates jobs. It helps put more renewable energy onto the grid. It helps homeowners. It helps businesses. It helps the sales agents. Every way you look at it, it's a win-win across the board. And I think it is slept on. I don't think enough people are taking advantage of it. I had a client in Maine, for example, that had it was 34 liquor stores, and they were using a whole lot of refrigeration. I signed them up. It was a Zoom call. It lasted about 30 minutes. They're like, Andrew, that sounds awesome. We don't obviously want to put an entire solar system on all 32 of our locations. And, that would be 100,000 a location times 32, and you pay that up front or take a loan. It's huge financial responsibility and burden when you could just simply virtually net meter and subscribe to a pre-existing solar farm and get a discount. If you're spending, I don't know, $500,000 a year on electricity, you don't have to spend any money. You can join a program that lasts 20 years. You can cancel it for free early, and you get, I don't know, a 10 or 20% discount on your power. That's tens of thousands of dollars that they're going to be saving for free, right? And it's my motto is always, it's hard to sell something, not that hard to give it away for free, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of the situation. You can go have a short meeting with a business owner, find a way to get in front of a business owner or a decision maker, be able to explain it thoroughly, know the potential questions or rebuttals they'll have. There's only a few. You let them know, hey, you can take advantage of this program. It works in conjunction with and in addition to your pre-existing third-party supply contract, if they have one. Likely they do if they're in a deregulated state and if they're a substantially sized business. So they want to make sure that is not going to interfere or screw over the guy that is their energy consultant that they've worked with for 20 years or whatever. And once they understand that, they're like, okay, where do I sign? Get that contract signed. That could be a 30-minute meeting. You can get paid in 2 weeks, and you get paid on usage. If they're a small business or if they're a municipal housing authority, there's a lot of different parameters of who qualifies and what utility on what program. but it pays on usage. And if they're a small business that has a whole heck of a lot of refrigeration, or they're using a lot of electricity, and you sign them up, you could be looking at multiple six-figure contract. You get paid in 2 weeks. I had a restaurant hospitality group sign them up. Boom, $200,000 in my pocket in 2 weeks. And didn't have to wait for anything to get installed. And I don't think that people know that. I just really think it's important for people to understand that that's a possibility.
So why aren't you staying hush hush about it?
What'd you say?
Why aren't you staying hush hush about it? Why do you want more people to know more about it?
I really believe in what's right. You would be so surprised, when I talk to a business owner, 9 out of 10 of them don't even know it exists.
Yeah.
And if I told you, this is really funny, right? Or not funny. It's actually super, super frustrating. I had a client, for example, they were a hospitality group in the northern suburbs of Chicago. They had 23 restaurants. It was a pretty good sized deal. They were all sold on it. They're ready to go. They said, okay, we're going to sign. They were reviewing the contract, 2 30-minute meetings. I was like, this is in the bag. They said, let me run it by my energy consultant, the guy that gets them their third-party energy supply contract, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm expecting this guy to sign this contract. It's been a week since I met with him. And he goes, here, talk to my guy, my consultant. He gives me a ring, and he's like, okay, Andrew, this is my client. I do the energy. We're going to have to come to an agreement. You're going to have to, really take care of me in order for me to tell, X customer to move forward. And I was like, dude, are you kidding me? I've been working this. No, I'm not okay with that. And then they're like, well, you're not going to get the deal then. I'm just going to be a prick about it. Well, I kind of consider that a troll under the bridge with their handout saying you have to pay the toll or the tax, and then I'll tell them to do it, So I kind of had the conversation, kind of let him believe that, just make sure he says yes, we'll work it out. And he did, and then started hounding me. He's like, where's my 20 grand? I was like, sucks to suck, really. And that's kind of how it works. And I got to tell you, in the last year, being in the commercial community solar space, I had a total of 7 energy consultants that, I don't know what the term is, extorted me or tried to stop my deal, primarily just because they didn't even know about it. They didn't know it existed. And they felt stupid that they didn't bring it to their client in the first place. And it's another layer of how that industry and the energy industry can be shady. It's just unbelievable. But that's the kind of stuff you're going to deal with. But that's a wild one right there. And chance to connect and chat.
Cool. Well, everybody, that's another episode. I'm gonna go ahead and catch you on the next one. All right.
Thank you very much, Noah. Great work doing what you're doing. Keep it up. And until next time, brother.
I appreciate it.